Welcome to this edition of Silver Sneakers Boom Muscle. If you've been following me for the past few videos, you know I'm working on trying to improve my strength, in particular for the activity or sport of powerlifting. So the 3 lifts, the squat, bench press, and deadlift. Well, today is my day to work on deadlift, and I wanted to demonstrate a new machine we got at the facility. This is a Nautilus belt squat machine. Works primarily on the lower body, on the quads and the posterior chain, minimizing stress on the back and the difficulty with the squat as far as maintaining balance. So you can see you can load up some plates on the end. It has this belt that you can step into. And you bring it up. I like to put it kind of high above my waist. If it's too low, it'll pinch on your upper hips, which hurt quite a bit. The device, let me show you this a little better. Handle with 3 holes, and I tried to find the instructions as to what's the benefit or choice of which ball you pick. Since the fulcrum is way at the end, basically I think it's just a little bit of extension of the lever arm. I'm going to choose to put it in the middle. So squat low. You got some handles here. Get your feet positioned and lift up. Has a great you can release. And you lower down. Get a nice stretch of your hips. I like this to try and aim to keep my shins as vertical as possible, which are going to be exercising my quads a bit more. And then you put the brake back on. You stand up, and that completes that set. I find of all the different squat lower body machines, this one requires a bit of that concept of stability of your body, your core, although it seems quite safe in that you have handles you can hang on to, and it does require lifting with a belt, so there is a bit of flexibility in that. I find one of the most frustrating things with doing the deadlift is when the bar is down on the floor, adding weights to it, you have to lift up the whole side to try and slide on something. So what I do is I take one of these plates, which has got a little bit bigger diameter than most of the other plates. So when I put on a second plate, see there's a little gap. So when I lift it off of the supports and rest it on the ground, it's elevated up, so any additional plates coming on slide on very easily. Just a little tip, it reduces some of the frustration. I always put a clamp on the end in case you tip the bar. Sometimes the weights can slide off, which then flip up that end can be quite dangerous. So I've done a good general warm-up for about 10 minutes. Heart rate's up a little bit sweaty. So before I start deadlifting, I do a modification called a straight leg deadlift or Romanian deadlift. The only difference is how bent your knees are. I like to bend them a little bit to lift the weight, but I don't bring it all the way to the floor, just somewhere below my knees. So as with any deadlifting, you want to focus. It can be a significantly difficult move. Embrace, tighten all your muscles. So for straight leg deadlift, studies have shown that the ideal rest period between heavy lifts is at least 3 minutes, somewhere like 3 to 5 minutes, to allow for full recovery. And instead of pushing sort of in that aerobic frame, you have a specific goal, getting stronger, so allow yourself that period of rest. Another warm-up I like to do before my serious deadlifting is to do a tire flip. This facility has one of these machines which is sort of half a tire, and you can flip it back and forth, but it's a full body exercise, warming up your shoulders, arms, back, hips, and legs. Some places have a full tire, generally outside, that you can flip. You gotta be careful, make sure that your back is in neutral, that you brace your core, and you lift with your back and legs, primarily your legs, to flip the tire over. Just like with the deadlift, you want to brace, which is to take a deep breath into the lower part of your lungs and tighten all of your core muscles 360 degrees around the core. About 4 or 5 years ago on this exercise, I tore my biceps muscle, which is never healed, was never reattached due to limitations of age. Surgeons don't like to reattach it if you're a senior. You lose a little bit of strength, you do recover as long as you have one of the heads attached. So make sure you contract those muscles. If you have any sort of tendonitis, be careful with this. That is tendonitis in your biceps. Tire flip is one of the favorite activities in CrossFit because the pace gets your heart rate elevated, generally into that zone 3 or so, where it's a little bit hard to talk. So working on cardiovascular fitness as well as strength. As a beginning power lifter, you might ask yourself, I've seen a lot of power lifters using weight belts, chalk on their hands, wrist straps, knee straps, etc. Each person's individual, and for me, what I've decided is when I hit a weight that's about 75% of my predicted maximum, then I start adding some of these other devices. First thing would probably be some chalk on my hands, because the lifting a heavy bar has a tendency to want to roll. The other modification is to do a mixed grip, meaning one hand is over the bar and the other hand is under the bar. The difference in that keeps the bar from rolling. It does give you a little bit of difference in how your muscles are developed, so one way to overcome that is to alternate which hand is over when you're doing different lifts. Knee straps or braces are individual. If you have any knee issues at all, it's probably a good idea to invest in a pair. And same with the wrist straps. Some lifters think it improves strength. I have found for myself I don't really think so. But if I start feeling any sort of tendonitis or strain in my wrists, I'd probably add them. Other exercises to add to doing the deadlift is, first of all, grip strength is very important. So doing shrugs, farmer's carry, other activities to work on your forearm and hand strength, very important. And wearing flat-soled shoes so that you don't have a risk for wobbling or losing your balance while doing a heavy lift. Some lifters even lift in bare feet or just non-supportive slippers for the same reason.
The weight on deadlift is of course unique to each individual. But as you're pushing yourself, you're finding you're getting involved in significant weight. Very important that you have perfect form to minimize injuries, that you brace, concentrate on contracting every muscle in your body to get the maximum out of each muscle. It is truly a full body exercise. First thing as you lift, you want to take the slack out of the bar, if there's any of that. You then try and explode off the floor. You won't move fast, but that does give you the most power. Like to focus, practice bracing. Make sure the bar is located sort of right over my midfoot. My feet are comfortable shoulder width apart. Toes under that. Some people like to do a sumo. I just prefer a straight deadlift. Each person is unique on that, of course. So when I'm ready, I squat down, keep my hips lower than my shoulders, and give it a good strong lift. Pause at the top and lower into the feet. Between each lift, stand up. Again, this is not trying to get my aerobic rate up, but rather focus on strength. So I'm going to do 2 or 3 lifts and then take a rest. You want to avoid dropping the weight, although when it's heavy enough it does make some sound. Then one more. Brace, focus, look ahead. Lost balance a little bit on that one. That's why you want to have a good safe area to do this exercise.
You want to learn from your failed attempts. What went wrong? It's important with the deadlift to put your weight in your feet, balanced between the ball of the foot and your heel. You want your weight completely centered. I had mine a little too far forward, and the weight pulled me forward, so I lose my balance. It's important to learn from these. So as you're going through this checklist of things to do before a deadlift, you want to remember the weight positioned in your feet correctly to avoid that in the future. During my recovery from deadlifting, I looked online to see how this Nautilus machine functions and what it claims that the weight lifted is actually a 1-to-1, meaning if you load it with, let's say 215 pounds, or let's say 4 plates plus the weight of the machine, 215, you're actually lifting 215. This is indeed a second-class lever with a fulcrum up here where the pivot is, a mass, and then a lever arm. This is a relatively short lever arm, which is quite close to the mass, and the distance from the fulcrum is quite long. So the classic Class 2 lever is a wheelbarrow, where the fulcrum, the wheel, is basically right underneath the mass, and then you have your handles of your wheelbarrow, which means the amount you have to lift is lighter than the full load, the benefit of lever. So that explains the 3 holes. The hole closest to the mass is going to give you the most accurate weight, and the 2 farther away a little bit lighter because there's a little bit of a lever arm. So I would choose a hole based what's most comfortable for me with my foot position, and if you can lift from the one closest to the mass, you're going to get the most accurate weight. I found that to be kind of an interesting little bit of trivia to occupy myself during recovery. it started me thinking about the other machines we have at a facility, weightlifting machines, and how levers and pulleys actually interact with them. I'll show some examples in subsequent videos. However, for the remainder of this video, I'm going to demonstrate some of the exercises I do to assist with deadlifting. You could call them accessory exercises or adjuncts that work on strengthening my hips, my posterior chain, upper back muscles, and just to add some variety. Start off with just basically going to do a deadlift with kettlebells. So one in each hand. I find the kettlebell actually lies about the same level as the bar when it's loaded with a 45-pound weight on each side. So it's just basically a variation, but what I can do is if I put them to the side, this is going to require my hips to go a bit lower and keep my back in a slightly more upright position. And lift up and down. So I'm just going to touch the weights down, not let them fully come off. Set those down. I'm going to switch to the same exercise but using some equivalent weight dumbbell. You can see the handle of the dumbbell is significantly lower than the handle of the kettlebell. This is going to require an increased range of motion, particularly loosening up my hips and coming off the floor, again requiring more from my hip muscles, quads, posterior chain. Trying to keep my back neutral, my head up, and lifting up. As I come up, trying to power off the floor. The same idea of bracing. And one more. And take a little break and recover. Well, I think lifting heavy is an important component of muscle strengthening resistance training. There's a tremendous component of activating and training your nervous system, this neuromuscular connection. So a lot of these adjunct exercises are not done with very heavy weights, but ones that you can concentrate on perfect form, avoiding injury, and working on that neuromuscular connection to where it becomes just instinct as you're doing these lifts. So taking the same dumbbells, you can do kettlebells, we're going to do some shrugs. So with my arms straight, just shrug my shoulders up. Many different positions. Like me, you can put them off to the side so your palms are facing. Come in front of your hips. You want to hold with a tight contraction at the top, and you can even put them behind. Variation on a shrug is similar to a bent row. So you're going to have the weights in your hands, hinge at your hips, make sure that your back is neutral so it's not rounded, and all you do is
shrug your shoulders, trying to connect the muscles in your shoulder blades, bring those together, and hold that contraction. I like this because I have a tendency to get elbow problems, either tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, if I do too many repetitions that involve bending the elbows. Here I get a lot of benefit, similar to a row, but not so much involvement of the elbow. And we'll do two more. With a nice pause at the top and down. During these exercises, you're also working on grip strength, which is very important in these heavy lifts. A lot of times people will have specific exercises for the forearms and wrists, although I find just hanging onto these dumbbells or kettlebells or bars for a significant period of time, 20, 30 seconds, is doing quite a bit to improve grip strength. If you've watched my previous videos, you know I really like kettlebell exercises, particularly the swing and the snatch. The swing, great exercise for the posterior chain as well as cardiovascular fitness. So just let the weight slide between your knees, bend your knees and hips a bit, and then pop forward to bring it up. Using a slightly lighter kettlebell with one arm, do a kettlebell snatch. Starts the same, but you bring the weight straight overhead. And then I like to switch.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm going to continue to pursue my goal of powerlifting. I have about 10 weeks until my Senior Olympics events. Work on trying to get stronger, avoid getting injured. I'm also going to throw shot put and discus, so I'm going to work on my forms for those and hope I don't embarrass myself, but more the goal is to compete and not necessarily to achieve greatness. So hope to see you next time.